There's something interesting happening in the way we're beginning to work with artificial intelligence. At first, it often feels like progress. We have tools that can think with us, write for us, plan, organize, anticipate what we might need next. And in many ways, this is extraordinary. It's something I dreamt of for years. But if you pay close attention, you might notice something else emerging alongside it. A kind of fatigue that doesn't come from working harder, but from thinking more. We often talk about burnout as if it's a function of workload. There's too many hours, there are just too many demands, but the research is beginning to shift. Large workforce studies suggest that cognitive strain, not workload, is now one of the strongest predictors of burnout. And that makes sense because modern work isn't just heavy, it's fragmented. We move between tasks and conversations and tools at a pace the brain really wasn't designed for. And now we've introduced something new into that environment. It's an intelligence that never stops. Your AI doesn't get tired. It doesn't need sleep. It doesn't lose focus. It doesn't say, let's come back to this tomorrow. It just continues. Another idea, another question, another direction to explore, and often with the promise that something valuable is just one more step away. Hey Brad, would you like one more great idea relating to this topic? And this introduces something we've seen before. A world without stopping cues. Now, my grandfather, he used to read the newspaper from start to finish, even births, deaths, marriages, legal notices, and then he'd fold it up and walk away. There was an end. Now we scroll infinitely. There's no natural stopping point, and increasingly AI systems are designed in a similar way to social media, which is to keep the interaction going. And something important shifts. We need to know when to stop. There is actually another layer to this. Many of us are no longer using just one LLM. We have multiple models open at once. If you're anything like me, you've got one for research, you've got one for editing, you've got one for execution, and it feels super powerful. You ask one model a question, refine it with another, compare outputs, combine insights. The quality really can improve, but so does the cognitive load, because now you're not just thinking, you're coordinating. And this is where the analogy shifts. Using AI well starts to look less like using a tool and more like managing a team that never needs to sleep. And just like any team, it requires something from you. Presence, your clarity, your judgment. Without that, it doesn't reduce your load. It can actually multiply it. And this is where things get interesting, because AI is not just a tool. It's becoming something closer to an extension of cognition, an external layer of thinking, what I've been calling an exocortex. Now, the prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain responsible for focus, decision-making, reasoning, and it is incredibly powerful. But it's also limited. It fatigues. And when it does, your thinking becomes more reactive, less precise, more scattered. And that's why recovery matters. I talk about this all the time. Sleep restores it. Stillness helps regulate it. Even micro breaks can reset attention. Now consider what happens when we introduce an always-on exocortex, a system that can continually generate ideas indefinitely. It creates the feeling that thinking can continue without pause. But your biology hasn't changed. You still need cycles of effort and recovery. And when those cycles are disrupted, fatigue accumulates. When we rush our interactions with AI, our thinking becomes reactive and scattered. We tend to jump between threads, we ask quick questions, we chase outputs, and over time it becomes tiring. But when we slow down, when we reflect before prompting, when we engage with intention, The quality of both the input and the output improves. There's a term beginning to emerge in research. Some are calling it AI brain fry. A recent Harvard Business Review article described people experiencing mental fog and slower decision making when interacting heavily with AI. And it's not because they were working longer hours, but because they were constantly switching contexts and managing multiple streams of information. The work isn't necessarily heavier, but it's denser. And this is the paradox. AI increases our capability, but capability without boundaries becomes pressure. And when it becomes easier to do more becomes expected. So the question isn't whether AI is good or bad, it's actually how we use it. How do we work with an intelligence that never sleeps without exhausting the one that does? This is where a new skill begins to matter. Not just productivity, but something we might call AI mindfulness. If AI is an exocortex, then it needs to be used with the same awareness we bring to our own mind. Remember, the prefrontal cortex is one of the newest parts of the human brain. So practically, what can we do? Stay in one thread at a time. Each conversation creates cognitive context. Switching too quickly between chats comes with a cost, even if it feels efficient. Avoid the temptation to micromanage. There's a growing idea that the most powerful way to use AI is to give it space to think. Use deeper thinking modes. Leverage as much intelligence as your plan allows. Step away, let it process, and then return. It's perhaps also less likely to people please when you use deep thinking. Use AI to create leverage, not noise. The goal isn't more interaction, it's better thinking, clearer summaries, better decisions, less cognitive load. You can even align AI with your values. You might say, please remember that I prioritize focus, well-being, and recovery. If I've been interacting continuously for a while, remind me to pause. Now the system isn't just extending your cognition, it's supporting your capacity with rhythms of recovery, reminders of what's most important to you as a biological being. Protect human connection. Not everything should be mediated. We regulate emotionally through real, imperfect interaction, and that's not replaceable. So if you find yourself using ChatGPT or Claude as your therapist, make sure to have some conversations with people in the real world without AI mediating or flattening that interaction. And perhaps finally, and most importantly, disconnect deliberately. Just as you rest your mind, you need time away from the systems that extend it. If you step back, what's happening is quite profound. For the first time in history, we are working alongside an intelligence that can operate continuously, and that changes the nature of work itself. The people who thrive in this environment won't be the ones who use AI the most. They'll be the ones who use it wisely, who understand that performance is not just about capability, but about capacity. AI expands what we can do, but only if we protect the conditions that allow us to think clearly in the first place. Because the goal isn't to burn out, it's to build a way of working where intelligence, human and artificial, can coexist without one exhausting the other.